You're listening to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. It would greatly benefit the show.
Oh, that was a good one. You got yourself, baby.
All over the crotch.
Did you say all over the crotch?
All over the crotch.
Okay, yeah, it is the crotch. My dear brother got his crotch
Wet?
What a wonderful way to begin.
All right. Great beginnings. Welcome to Movie Bidders with the Farx brothers. I'm Kirk.
And I'm Kyle, and my crotch is dry. For now.
You didn't get wet during the debate?
I have been drinking that mushroom coffee we've been talking about.
All right, and we're here with director Eric Forsman.
Hello.
He also does other things, just so we're clear.
Way too many things.
He's a writer.
Oh, okay.
He's a producer.
Writer, producer, collects way too many Funko Pops.
Do you?
Cosplayer.
I have like 200 of them.
What?
Nice.
Do you keep them in the boxes? I'm genuinely confused.
Oh, yes, I do. Like,
Yeah, you got it, right?
Yeah, I have them like all over the shelves. Like, part of my room is like covered in Funko Pops. I'll do like a Zoom meeting and like people will notice that I have Funko Pops like everywhere.
We bought some Funko Pops because it was the only action figure of Lockjaw I could find, and my kids are really into Lockjaw. As people find out,
The Inhumans?
the Inhumans Lockjaw, and they've really got to bring that Lockjaw into the main MCU. And I know we're here to talk about Death Race 2000, but I feel this all flows together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's because, you know, the Inhumans are characters from space that deal with a lot of action, and this movie also has a lot of strangeness and action. Boom, there you go, connection.
Nice.
So why'd you pick this, Eric?
I picked this solely because I wanted to do a strange film that probably wouldn't be usually on the radar. It was also probably the oldest film so far on your series. Take that, Ryan Becken. And this was also on my 50 film watch list, which is a list of 50 films I try to watch before the year ends.
That you have seen or haven't seen?
Haven't seen.
So you hadn't seen this before?
Not until last night.
You watched it for the first time last night?
Yep.
I put this on last week with my Mrs. Farx, who you met before, when she took the picture, and she was very confused by it.
I watched this without any context, so I completely understand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I also saw it just on Monday.
Tell us more about this 50 film watch list. What else is on there? How did you come to develop this? Whatever you want to.
Well, it all started at college when I've just been casually talking with people, and you know, like how you always have like when you're talking about a movie and like you haven't seen it and you have a friend's like, you haven't seen that yet? That happened like way back in 2020. So I decided, you know, to make a 50 film watch list. I put them up on Letterboxd, and I just do 50 films to watch before the year ends. My first one had like stuff like The Dark Knight, Beetlejuice, and so many other crazy movies.
Well, you hadn't seen The Dark Knight?
Until 2020. Like I said, I got really in depth with like more movies now. Like for now it was 2025. Some of the stuff that this year included this movie, Death Race, Rollerball, which was an inspiration for Death Race.
Yeah.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was perhaps one of them. Umbrellas of Schönberg. Basically, I tried to do good, bad, popular, obscure films that are like from a foreign country, all sorts of films, and I just put them on like a list, and it's like 50 of them, and I have to watch them right before the year ends. Some of my upcoming ones include Drive, Nightcrawler, Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, Midsummer.
All of those are movies that I own. I recently showed a scene from Monty Python Meaning of Life to my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old, and all I will say is that it is about vomiting. So when you get to that, I hope you think of me. And
I think I am aware of that scene.
Mr. Creosote?
Yes, that one. That is a great. I have seen the clip of that. When I was a kid, my friends and I would always recite the Holy Grail.
So you were a Holy Grail kid, but then you didn't go into the other ones. Like, what about Life of Brian?
That one I saw a few years ago.
I couldn't get through the whole thing.
It's a slog,
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
Even though we're here to talk about Death Race 2000, did you see Book of Clarence, either of you?
No, I have not seen the Book of Clarence.
I would
saw it.
compare that to Life of Brian. Yeah, it's similar.
I could see that.
Yeah, but Book of Clarence is a lot more serious.
No, I laughed my ass off.
You laughed during that movie. I did not laugh maybe once or twice, but not that much.
Oh, we should have
Yeah.
seen it together. That's
Yeah.
really the problem, is that we weren't together when we saw it.
Yeah, we'll do a bonus of it.
We will have to. That's where we get the priest on.
There you
I'm
go.
trying to get a priest on to talk about Conclave. We were doing that before the Pope died. No.
Now it
Yeah, probably
seems-
not the best.
What, you think they're busy right now? It's not like they're
Just
going to
a little
bed.
bit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy named Pizza Balla, and he might be a potential contender. I mean, having a Pope Pizza Balla, I mean, that sounds like a pretty awesome name. Like, it's like, here comes Pope Pizza Balla.
Oh, wait, you've looked up the betting odds of who's most likely to win the Pope race?
Well, I just looked up news articles mainly of just like potential candidates, and like there's a literal and the guy named Pizza Balla, and it's like he better bring like a pizza party like every time he shows up.
Well, I guess they are in the middle of Italy. If you can bet on it, it's out there, and the betting odds are usually the best indicators of like what's going to win the Academy Award. Whenever I have to fill out a bracket, I just look up the betting odds and go, well, which ones. And I've been doing that since I was in like high school.
Yeah, I was about to say there's probably like a gold derby thing. I've done
Exactly.
I've done Oscar predictions, Razzie predictions. That's my NFL kind of thing. Like I don't do sports, but I'll do, but when it comes to the award show, that's my Super Bowl. That's where I make my playoffs and
Is
everything.
car racing a sport?
Car racing. I could see it as a sport. Yeah, I'd say car racing's a sport.
I wouldn't even qualify Death Race as a race though, because they're trying to get points. It doesn't matter who reaches the end first.
Well, I don't want to spoil too much of the movie, but yeah, there is
The
a
main
racing
premise, yeah.
and point-based
I
component.
mean, it's kind of like, to be fair, a lot of the Death Race is kind of a reflection of like sports both back then and today. Like the 70s was kind of a violent decade in sports. Like the Broad Street Bullies throughout the 70s in hockey were like just beating the shit out of like every hockey player. It didn't even matter like what referee. It was like they were beating the shit out of them. And 10-cent beer night was probably the biggest mistake in baseball.
Wait, why do you know those things if you're not a sports
Yeah,
guy?
see, exactly. It's like that's kind of the weird enigma of me. Like, I'll be like, if you tell me like some like sports players, I'll be like, who? But like, I will give if you tell me about 10-cent beer night, I will give you like details about that.
One of the jarring things about this movie, especially for Mrs. Farx, is like, when is this taking place? When was this made? Because she could tell it was very old because we saw Baby Sly.
2000.
Yeah, Stallone. This was literally the film before Rocky came out, like just a year before.
Yeah, 75, 76. And
Well, the story takes place the year 2000, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a historical biopic. We all remember the Death Race. We were there.
Y2K never happened.
Yeah, it was just a giant race with Stallone.
Exactly, it never happened in this timeline.
yes, in
Yeah.
1975, they hadn't figured out that the internet would change everything. Kind of like how when, and this is where I was going with this, Blade Runner came out in 1982. When does it take place? 2019. What's the one we just did, The Running Man or something like that with
That was with Ian, the Running Man.
Yeah, I know, but that's another movie that's like it's
2015, is it?
the book is 2015 and the movie
Definitely some election year.
Well, the Jetsons, George Jetson was like born in like 2022, so he's like a 3-year-old right now.
Oh yeah, it's my my daughter. She'll be George Deal. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. we're just taking along with the flying cars over right now.
Well, the thing is that you don't need flying cars if you can just do a Zoom call.
Honestly, flying cars would probably suck, because like, can you imagine like drunk driving like with flying cars? Like you're just chilling at your house and like just some like drunk guy like just crashes his car on your roof.
I mean, it happens now, anyways, with the cars that don't fly.
But like you'll see like dead birds just falling out of the sky. Oh, there goes Timmy. He's had a little enough right there.
Wait, I wonder if that's because like flying is supposed to be safer than driving. Like anytime you get in a car, you're putting yourself at more risk than you are getting on a plane. Yet people are like, oh, I don't know, and those Boeing people definitely killed themselves, So we can talk maybe obliquely about, is this a satire? The criticisms at the time this movie came out were that it wasn't enough. It wasn't making any commentary. And did you find commentary in this movie?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's even some reflection of today of like just for the sake of entertainment, like, the lengths we go. Like if you even like look at stuff like modern stuff like Squid Games, or in more of reality shows, Beast Games with like the Mr. Beast content, like people will go extreme lengths for like, some amount of money. Or in Death Race case, you're racing, you're running over all these people for the sake of like recognition and power. And you even see that with like Stallone's character Joe, who keeps getting in second place. The running joke of like everyone being like, oh, I'm a big fan of Frankenstein, and Joe's like, oh, shut the fuck up, I want to beat this guy.
Who could have thought that Kill Bill, David Carradine, would be a lesser known, person, but probably by the year 2000, Stallone was a bigger name than David Carradine. But David Carradine would have been bigger at this time because of Kung Fu.
And originally this role was going to be played by Peter Fonda, if I remember right.
Yeah. So you did research into this before you picked it out, or after?
I kind of afterwards, I sometimes look at the Wikipedia page and I look at the production history, and I just kind of looking at some of if there's any interesting history that kind of pops out of it, because sometimes production history can be more entertaining than the movie itself. Take a look at the 90s remake of The Island of Dr. Monroe. That in itself could be a movie.
That's the one with Brando, and is it...
the late Val Kilmer, yes.
Oh, yeah. May they both rest in peace. Marlon Brando in a much larger hole, I would imagine. He was a big man at the end there. You ever see the movie The Score? I'll just say Edward Norton's in it.
Yeah.
I speak ill of the dead.
I'm speaking ill of being overweight. That's why, I'm drinking mushroom coffee and counting steps, because I care about my health, and, we're each responsible for our own. I can't, make
I was
Marlon
going to say he
Brando
probably
skinny.
doesn't weigh that much right now, right?
Probably worm food. He's probably, we don't know. Was he pumped up with formaldehyde, or I think it is okay to give away in the spoiler section that this is a movie where they drive around and kill people.
Yeah, it's it's a film that it takes, spoilers for anyone that was waiting for 50 years for this. That's part of the premise, and this honestly reminds me a lot of Wacky Races, and I was actually surprised.
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is kind of if George Miller directed Wacky Races. Kind of gives me a Fury Road vibe.
I mean, this did probably walk so that, Road Warrior would have come out 2 or 3 years after this?
I think so.
So at the time this came out, the Chicago Tribune gave it a 1 out of 4 stars, but the Washington Post gave it a positive review. So there was a bate at that time.
And it's funny because, as you bring up the media, because that's another thing that in this film they talk about. The announcer, Don Steed, if I remember right, love that his performance is absolutely stunning in this, electrifying, and he's just so excited about every single death and everything. And this other reporter, if you notice in the movie, every time she refers to a different racer, a dear friend of mine, she says, that's still kind of used today. People are Katy Perry, dear friend of mine, went to space and everything. Or this person, dear friend of mine.
Or Aaron Andrews and Brett Favre. And if you get that reference, you're cool. He texted her a picture of his wiener. You remember that? That was what?
That had nothing to do with Death Race. I thought we were gonna have some
because
kind of
she's in the meet. She was a sideline reporter, and he was a
Brett
competitor.
Favre.
And it actually does play very well in this movie because they put the very attractive women on the sidelines to interview the men who were just getting CTE.
Well, there was actually 2 women in this race. There was the cowgirl, Calamity Jane. And
this movie's progressive to a certain degree,
letting women drive.
And then with the nudity, not progressive.
Yeah, no, it was.
I had to pause it when a kid walked in the room.
It was very. There's definitely a very 70s vibe with that. Also the music in general is very it has that more synthesizer music that's which it can be sometimes it can be more distracting, but also sometimes I can vibe with it. A lot of those synthesizer 70s music I like in some of the 70s stuff like Logan's Run or Land of the Lost, the show. But it's definitely very 70s in this. Speaking of the 70s crafts, another thing that it reminds me of, I'm not sure if you guys heard about this one, Phantom of the Paradise with Paul Williams.
No.
I think it came out about a year before. Phantom of the Paradise is basically Phantom of the Opera, but it's kind of in a similar way of Death Race, where it's kind of this more sci-fi meets the devil, kind of a little bit like Sinners, where it's kind of careful kind of what you wish for.
Okay, I'm gonna push back on 2 things. I did not think this movie was very sci-fi. I felt like everything that happened could happen in reality. Whereas if the devil's there, it's not sci-fi. It's supernatural. It's fantasy. I draw a hard line there. And see, I knew we'd find a bait.
There you go.
Owen Rice and I get into arguments about whether or not Star Wars is fantasy or science fiction. And I can't remember which. I think we've switched.
Didn't we have this argument with Brandon too?
I think we've had this argument with lots of people. Because it's talking about nonsense, you know.
Yeah.
Well, this nonsense is this, but this nonsense is in a different category, you see. And, you know, someone like Ebert struggled with this in his lifetime because he gave it a 0-star review when it came out. But then later...
Oh, they didn't do thumbs up or down. They had actual stars.
I can't
Well, we always had like a star rating.
Oh.
It's just on the show they did like thumbs up or thumbs down. This was like before the show came out, so you know there's no clips out there. Like
It's back when they hated each other. Because they hated each other, Siskel and Ebert. And they were kind of rivals in Chicago. And that's why bringing them together on the new medium of television reviews was a thing. Grace Pander is the name of that other host. And
Pander.
my dear friend her last name is Pander. So, like, a lot of the movie seems to have knowing satire in it.
Yeah.
And let's get this out of the way now. The Nazi thing, like, who could have expected the Nazis would, and somehow Palpatine came back, you know?
Yeah,
like,
no,
what?
it was. It definitely was crazy. And I mean, it's not like it wasn't like the first time. Like even like stuff like the Blues Brothers like had like the outright, but like stuff like in here in the Blues Brothers, like they're clearly meant to be kind of like a joke. Like they're mainly played over, like even the performances in this, they're over the top. They're like, yes, we've got like they're like shouting out and everything. And I'll probably save for the spoilers for their fate, but it's very comedic.
Wacky Racers.
Wacky Racers, Looney Tunes.
Well, no, I was going to say, with the Nazis in this movie, which wacky racer was a Nazi, and why was it the Baron?
The Baron, you know what?
The Baron is totally like he
is the Red Baron kind of, and the Red Baron was German.
Yeah, so that's World War I.
Yep.
So they were like, okay, well, we can't make him a World War II bad guy, but we can make him a World War I bad guy. No one's gonna, you know.
I mean, even with the connections, like I think about Stallone's character, and like he's kind of got the anthill mob, like the mafia kind of look and everything, more of that than like Dick Dastardly.
Remember in Step Brothers when they're trying to get people to not buy the house and they're dressed up as a Klansman and Hitler or a Nazi or something like that? And I think about like 2008 as, you know, a hallowed time where like in 2025, I don't know that you can clearly shoot up KKK members and like
the
and
Nazis
sinners.
are back, so you get.
Well,
I mean, I was about to say, there's not even like debates with Indiana Jones where it's like Indiana Jones hates the Nazis. It's not about grabbing the item. It's literally because he literally says that they're bad. He doesn't like them. Why do you think that he likes them?
I wish that Follow Indy worked with a broader set of people. I guess the point I'm making is that if you put the Nazis in something today, it might not come across as satire because, like in Blues Brothers, I'm a big Blues Brothers fan. I grew up with watching the Blues Brothers.
Love the Blues Brothers.
How old were you when you saw it?
I was probably like 8 or 10. Like I was a lot of my generation was introduced to the Blues Brothers because there was an episode of Drake and Josh where there was a talent show and they literally do Soul Man. And my friends also did like Soul Man, like at their like 5th grade. We did like a lip sync. They did like the Blues Brothers. I did Yellow Submarine, and it's how I got to I watched the Blues Brothers around that time. So it was a long time ago when I watched it.
I'm going to tell an inappropriate story about Nora Peterson, who you mentioned in your interview. You're like, what? And how does this relate to the Blues Brothers?
I was about to say, is this okay to air?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Because the butt of the story is me. Okay. I am the person that is the butt of this joke. She comes up to me at Z-Fest last week, and she's like, well, very regularly, I think about you singing Soul Man at karaoke, and when they get to they say come at some point in the song, and the song is also talking about sex, but I always like to fake do a jerk off motion and then throw it at someone in the audience I was in a bar, it was a dive bar, and she's like, I think about you doing that, and how the woman you didn't actually throw anything at her, but she like reacted big, like, oh my god, you were there, you remember this?
I don't remember a woman reacting.
Well, and then I saw her reaction, and while still singing went, like shrug.
It was nothing with the act of it. Wow.
Well, yeah, but Nora was saying, I think about it often because it makes me giggle really hard, that in the middle of Soul Man, and it relates to your Drake and Josh story because was it Drake that was getting, abused at that time? What? Quiet on Set came out like...
Yeah, but that's...
It's when
That's
he
not
brought it
relatable. I don't
up,
know.
we're talking about the Nazis. We're talking about
Yeah, but-
literal literal Nazis are back, so that's pretty bad. And then Drake and Josh, oh yeah, the way they made kids program back in the 90s wasn't so cool, you know.
This is going to be the most wild episode, isn't it?
No,
No, I don't think so.
no, this is about a 7 so far.
I was about to say, this
Do
is
you
either
want-
the most wild or this is like the most calm in comparison. No, I was going to say, one of the other things that they were, speaking of, one of the other things was the censorship with the rebellion group. Like, they were trying to prevent the race, ironically, by killing the racers themselves.
Yeah, I do. Well, it's kind of a spoiler.
It's called Death Race. You imagine somebody's going to die.
Yeah, I guess, I'm impressed by wild swings they took that were kind of in the air that now reverberate today. I don't know how I feel about censoring anything because, the classic example, Nazis, ACLU defends Nazis marching in Skokie, Washington. You know the thing I'm referring to? The ACLU defended Nazis being able to march in a
But that's
predominantly
they
Jewish
should
town.
censor that stuff, though. We don't need any more of that Nazi stuff.
No. We should not. The American Civil Liberties Union would say that we should not censor that because it is good to know who the Nazis are. Aziz Ansari made this exact joke. If you're a racist, please tell me if you're a racist so that I know you're a racist. And I mean, Nazis aren't just racist; they're also evil in many other ways.
We
but
kicked their ass.
We did, but they're back again,
Well,
and now
because
people are
Russia was willing to-
romanticizing it. Don't you think a little bit? That the Nazis are back, the Nazis are here. They're right-leaning people. They're here to stay. They have some kind of power.
Censorship. The people who try to censor things are never on the right side. It turns out.
Yeah, but isn't the right also censoring things?
Yeah,
anyways?
I think the right's wrong whenever they try to censor things, and I'm not down for that. I think you know that, but no, I'm saying that I'm against it. I'm glad we're getting in a debate over this because I'm always against censoring things. Even freedom of speech isn't there to protect speech we all agree with. It's there to protect the speech we all hate.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
fair.
I just know, I was going to say, just a quote I know is, free speech doesn't mean just keep yapping. I mean, yes, to that sense, it's like, obviously, free speech, whatever, talk what you want, but also if it's something that people aren't going to really agree, there's not really a point to keep yapping and yapping if it's really not that agreeable. I mean, obviously you can do it, but if you're expecting to win people over, if you're hey, I think pineapple pizza is the greatest, and you're saying this to a bunch of pineapple pizza haters, is there really I'm sure if you want to go ahead and talk about pizza with that, I guess, but you're not going to win anybody over.
You've given a bait line for me to go on the opposite side of you and say that if you're doing something like, let's say, a monk style debate where they take a poll of the audience ahead of time. Are you guys familiar with this? They take a poll. They talk about it. They have a topic, and then people take different sides of it. The presenters that are there, and they poll the audience. And then the way they tell if the debate, who is most successful is how much the audience shifts what the delta is in terms of these things. There was one on political correctness that was big because I think it was Stephen Fry was one of the people against Malcolm Gladwell. The premise of this show is that it is good for movies to have debates over them because having multiple views on movies is good for movies. It makes them stickier and able to influence culture more.
That's true, but I don't think most moviegoers are gonna actually debate it and talk about it that much and take away any lessons that the movie has.
I can't control the steps other people take. I can't control...
I think
Then
most
what's the
people
point of
that
the debate?
watch this probably just want to see cars blow up and people get ran over. So it's I don't think it's too... Well, there is a lot of great messages and everything for us. Most people are probably not going to look at this too deep. They just are hey, there's a bunch of cars that blow up and Stallone's in it.
Okay.
I like it.
So is it not a satire then?
Let me try to take your guys' argument then. Because there were a lot of people at the time, Ebert, Siskel, even though they hated each other, agreed that this is back in 1975. This is a terrible movie. It's prurient to show such violence in this kind of disgusting way. But should this movie be censored? Because look, 50 years later, we're talking about it and going, man, they got some things not to the year right, but some of the ways in which, hey, we'll use violent sports to distract the masses. That was going on
I mean,
50 years ago.
if you don't, I don't know if there's any correlation between, like, if you don't know about it, you're probably not gonna do that thing, right?
I mean, there's always been like debates about violence in the media. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still debates about video games today.
Causing violence,
I mean, obviously there was like horror movies. I mean, even like always goes back. Like, you know, we went from like, you know, violence in video games, violence in movies, violence in D&D, violence in
Satanic.
rock and roll.
That was Satanic Panic, the D&D one.
Violence in books, and even literally back then, the written word was seen as like offensive thing back in ancient Greek. Socrates literally called the written word lazy for people.
Would you say there's more censorship now than there was back then, though?
I think so.
So I was listening to someone kind of debate this in terms of there are more centralized ways of getting mass media out. For example, Sinclair Broadcasting, would love to have you guys as a sponsor, have bought up all of these like local news broadcasters, and it was better when they were all disconnected from one another and all kind of developing their own best practices. And it's your local news that's going to do the most good in your community versus, you know, national news, although a lot of things have been nationalized in the past, like let's say 10 years. So theoretically, we'll have a swing back towards more localized focus. A thought. Where I think you guys are going is that, hey, there's been a lot of examples where things were called evil, and if you're pro-censorship, which I am almost always against, then you would say, well, they shouldn't have made Grand Theft Auto. They shouldn't have had Death Race 2000. The Fast and the Furious encourages people to engage in unsafe behavior.
I think the correlation here is the Nazi thing. I just don't think we should keep bringing this up, like Nazis existing and now Nazis are coming back again, being popular. We shouldn't just
on
mix
your
everything
topic
else up.
of are more things censored now? It's not hard to put up a website, and you could pretty much say whatever you want on there. The problem is the attention economy, and it's going to be harder to drive traffic there. But here's my argument for you. That's a quote you've probably heard before. Anyone who gives up liberty for security will lose both. You've probably heard that. I can't remember who said that, but that's where I go, no, I'll be a communist and say, let 1,000 flowers bloom, you know, and see what works. I never understand why that's a communist thing. I think it was Mao who said it.
Okay.
And this is where my head goes, Eric. I am also a weird person. Did you say that in the segment? That I'm a weird guy? Not that I, Kyle, am a weird guy. You said I, Eric, am a weird guy.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like everyone has like their own obsessions with like. I mean, there's like, you know, we all have like a weird deep in like some hobbies. Like I love, you know, there's some interesting history and everything as well. You look more into like different ideologies in history.
Yes, I guess that is somewhat. My brother laughed at that. Why did you laugh at that?
Because I don't think you have an interest in other ideologies. I mean, to be fair, you do take in both sides of the media and you listen to it. And
Well,
you
if we're
take it
only
in.
looking at the American partisan lens. But I mean, there's possibilities of people becoming more nationalist, which doesn't necessarily mean Nazi, although Nazi literally meant National Socialist.
Yeah.
But it is like, if you're, let's say, Europe, and you have a lot of socialized services, and then due to America doing wars and coups and, you know, people are migrating out of those places, and now you're getting a lot of immigration. It's like, whoa, we have a nation here that's now getting, you know, diluted. Like France, we know them for their wine, but now like 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 adults just don't drink there. And I'm not saying, oh, you have to drink to be cool. I'm saying like it's a changing of their nation that, you know, they didn't agree to because America went and terrible things in other places that then caused those people hardship and the desire to move from where they were.
Maybe I feel like
Some of those people are Nazis, just so I'm
No,
clear.
continue to bring it up. Continue to put it in our movies might be a bad thing in the long run.
So you would censor Nazis from movies?
I would just exclude them. I mean, I'm sure we have other bad guys that we could set up as the antagonists. I mean, we're kind of tired of fighting the Russians too.
Well,
It does get overplayed. The
Yeah.
Cold War angle kind of gets like even in like a lot of media, like it's like they're a Russian spy from another spot. Sometimes it's just nice to have like a Cobra. You know, get your Cobra commander. I mean, obviously, there's some basis there of like, you know, Russia and everything with that. But like, you know, you got your Cobra commanders or your supervillains going around like in different media. Or in horror, you know, you got your guys from the dead.
one of the things that you said is that I might be interested in other ideologies throughout history. one of the arguments I would make for going against censorship is that when we were hot in the Cold War, pun intended, under Reagan pushed the opposite in terms of like consuming Russian literature, poetry, and the arts, is that we should not give up the great arts that have come from Russia, even though we are at this time against their governmental system. I think that's true for,
Well, yeah, it's interesting with media in general with that. I mean, even on the other side, like, oddly enough, kind of wraps around to Jim Henson here, but like the Muppet Show is like one of the first like non-Russian things to be in Russia, and it became like a huge hit just because it was like more unison and everything. Art is a pretty unison thing, and there are middle grounds of like, censorship with like what can work, like obviously there's a lot of stuff in older stuff that hasn't aged the best. Warner Brothers actually did a solid job. It's like just a 30-second thing that says, what we're doing here is, obviously of the time, but to erase that is to erase that terrible history and everything that like, that should be addressed on. And, so we're presenting it the way it is, but we have grown as like, as a person and everything. And like, I know like it got flack for like when it played for like before Gone with the Wind, or like some of it like with some problematic stuff with like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. But honestly, I think that's a good middle ground, because like it says what it says, it gives a good amount of info, and it's just 30 seconds long. Like most people like watch like ads that are like 30 seconds. So
well, I would argue in favor of you that I would not censor warnings. If someone wants to give a warning, I wouldn't censor it. I might make fun of it, and I definitely would, probably, but I wouldn't censor it. I thought of two examples to end on before we start talking about how Nazis are treated in this movie in the spoiler section. Would you like me to start with Pythagoras, Birth of a Nation?
Let's go Pythagoras.
Yeah, so the Pythagorean theorem is...
The triangle thing?
A squared plus
B
B squared.
squared equals C squared, right?
Yeah, I knew you. See, you said you weren't good at math in your interview section, I thought, and that was pretty good.
There you go. We're having all sorts of wacky subjects here. We got math in this. Now we have math in this episode.
So he was a child molester for sure. So should we not acknowledge that A squared plus B squared equals C squared because he was a child molester?
Why is it relevant?
That's a Stavros joke. Is that like hey, all of these guys were definitely child molesters because that was the case at the time. Is child molestation, but you wouldn't say, oh, we should, it's a bastardization of how far back do we cancel something. So I'll take it forward into history into like the 1910s. You know how like in a movie where something will be going on in one location and at the very same time something will be going on in another location and you'll cross cut between those two things?
Yeah.
Do you know what movie that was invented in?
Birth of a Nation.
Which is about?
Ghosts.
Nazis? Oh.
Wait, what?
Ghosts. I mean, they're all ghosts now.
Good joke. So my point is that, like, hey, just because Klansmen figured out how to represent two things going on at the same time in film, obviously they're very, very wrong about being virulent, violent racists, but they figured out something with movies that we still use today. And acknowledging that that's the reality we live in, I wish it wasn't. And, if I could Avengers Endgame us out of that reality, I would do it. But I can't, because I'm not as good at science as fictional Tony Stark. But do you get what I'm saying? Is like, we shouldn't censor things because at least put in the context like Eric is suggesting, but acknowledge like, oh, this happened.
Well, what has a Nazi done that has been good?
The Autobahn?
What's the
Germany?
Autobahn?
Well, it was so that they could, move people quickly to be killing them. But now it's a very... people like driving on that from all parts of the world. It's the place in Germany where you can drive really fast. Are you guys familiar?
Not too much. I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned Romans and Greeks, because there is literally a racer that I completely forgot named after like the Roman conqueror Nero. Honestly, I kind of kept forgetting about this character because like there's like 5 racers, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's like 5 racers in this movie.
All right, let's jump into spoilers so that we can talk more specifically about what happens in the movie.
Well, thank you for joining us in our non-spoilers segment. We'll catch you in our spoilers. Thank you for listening. For more on JK Productions, find us on Instagram at JK Productions Team and on Facebook, JK Productions MN.